The crash of the stainless steel tray against the counter nearly drowned out the impatient voice of the customer. "Miss, I've been waiting for 20 minutes. Are you even listening?" Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I swallowed hard, forced a tired smile, and slid the plate across. My arms ached from carrying stacks of dishes all day. My back felt like it was on fire, and the sweat sticking to my uniform clung like glue. Double shifts at the diner weren't glamorous, but they paid the bills. At least they were supposed to. By the time I finally clocked out, the sky was dark. My shoes squished with sweat as I dragged myself down the block, just dreaming of unlocking the front door to my little house, showering off the grease smell, and collapsing into bed. But when I reached the street corner, I froze. The porch light was off, the curtains were missing, and a moving truck sat in the driveway, tailgate open, men tossing furniture inside like it was scrap wood. "What the hell?" My voice cracked as I dropped my bag and ran forward. One of the movers barely looked at me. "You the tenant?" "Orders from the owners. House sold this morning. Everything's being cleared." My heart slammed so hard I couldn't breathe. "Number, that's not possible. This is my house. My name is on the—" Before I could finish, I heard laughter. Light, sharp, cutting through the night. I turned, and there she was, my sister Amanda, standing on the sidewalk with her arms crossed, smirk plastered on her perfect face. "Well," she drawled, tilting her head like she was enjoying a private joke. "I guess someone finally told you." I staggered toward her, every muscle in my body trembling. "What did you do? Why is my house being emptied?" Amanda didn't even blink. She leaned closer, her perfume hitting me like poison. "Mom and Dad sold it. Signed everything over to fund Kyle's trip to Europe. You know, something worthwhile. He deserved it more than you." Her words burned like acid. My brother, the golden boy, the one who never worked a day in his life, who flunked out of college twice, and still got praised for finding himself. And me, I'd been killing myself with double shifts, holding everything together. I felt my lips curve into a slow, sharp smile that didn't match the chaos in my chest. Amanda's brows lifted, confused. She thought she'd crushed me. She thought I'd beg, cry, maybe throw a scene. Instead, I just whispered, "Wait until you hear who really owned that land." The color drained from her face, because she didn't know. None of them knew. And that was the beginning of their undoing. Amanda's smirk only deepened when she saw the shock on my face. She folded her arms like she had won some prize. "Don't look so surprised, Riley," she said. "Kyle's future matters more than your little house. He deserved it more than you." Her words stabbed at me, but instead of breaking down, I forced myself to stay calm. My voice came out steady, sharper than I expected. "Deserved it? He's never worked a day in his life. I've been pulling double shifts just to keep this place running, and you think selling it behind my back is fair?" Amanda laughed. "Fair? Life isn't fair. Mom and Dad finally did something right for once." The movers kept shuffling boxes, avoiding eye contact like they didn't want to get dragged into the family drama. I stepped closer, lowering my voice, but making sure she heard every syllable. "You think this house belonged to Mom and Dad to sell?" I asked. Amanda tilted her head, smirk still on her face. "Obviously. Who else would it belong to?" That's when I let the smallest smile tug at my lips. I leaned in, close enough for her to feel the sting of my words. "Wait until you hear who really owned that land." Her smirk faltered for the first time. "What are you talking about?" I pulled my phone out, swiping quickly to the scanned documents Grandma had given me months before. The official stamp glared back in the glow of the screen. "You should have paid attention before running your mouth, Amanda. Grandma didn't leave this land to Mom, Dad, or Kyle. She left it to me, legally recorded, witnessed, and sealed." Amanda's eyes darted to the movers, then back to me. Her confidence cracked just enough for me to see the fear she tried to hide. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" I said softly. "Tomorrow you'll see the proof. And when you do, that smirk of yours won't save you." For the first time all night, Amanda had nothing to say. The silence between us was heavier than any insult she'd thrown before. And standing there, tired, angry, and still in my grease-stained uniform, I realized something. I finally had the upper hand. The next morning, I barely slept. My uniform from the diner still hung on the back of the chair, carrying that faint smell of grease and burnt coffee I couldn't scrub off my skin. But I didn't care. My mind wasn't on double shifts or aching feet anymore. It was on the fireproof envelope sitting on the dresser, the one Grandma had insisted I keep safe. By 9:30 a.m., I was already downtown, the courthouse looming over the city like some concrete fortress. People rushed in and out, lawyers in sharp suits, clerks balancing files, a few nervous couples clutching paperwork. I stood there gripping the strap of my worn-out bag, my pulse drumming. At 9:59, they arrived. Amanda first, clicking down the sidewalk in heels too bright for the occasion, still pretending this was some kind of performance. Behind her came Mom and Dad, both dressed like they'd just walked out of a country club brunch. And, of course, Kyle trailed last, sleepy-eyed, yawning, sunglasses pushed up like the sunlight was personally attacking him. The moment he saw me, Kyle snorted. "Really, Riley? You dragged us all the way down here because you're jealous of a vacation?" I clenched my jaw. "Number, I dragged you here because you sold something you didn't own." Dad's lips pressed into a thin line. "Stop this nonsense. We handled it, Riley. The house was ours to sell. End of story." "Not quite," I said, pulling the envelope from my bag. My hands didn't even shake this time. I'd been waiting for this. "You sold the structure, sure, but the land, the deed to the actual soil, belongs to me. Grandma made sure of it." I laid the documents flat on the table inside the recorder's office. The clerk glanced at the raised seal, then at my parents. "This was recorded last December," she said matter-of-factly. "Valid and active. Leasehold interest, consent clause. Yes, she's correct. Any sale without the landowner's signature is unenforceable." Amanda's face drained of color. Mom stiffened, clutching her purse like someone had just told her it was fake. Dad's nostrils flared, but he didn't argue. The seal spoke louder than any excuse. Kyle blinked, confused. "Wait, so what does that mean? The money?" The clerk adjusted her glasses and read aloud. "Any transfer made in violation of the consent clause shall result in the full net proceeds reverting to the landowner." She looked at me. "That's you?" The silence that followed was so heavy I could feel the weight of it pressing down on the room. Amanda whispered, "You're lying?" But her voice cracked halfway. "No," I said, steady as stone. "You sold the roof over my head, but Grandma made sure I'd always have the ground beneath my feet. That money you thought would send Kyle across Europe? It's mine now." Kyle's sunglasses slipped down his nose. "You've got to be kidding me." I turned to face all of them, my voice sharper now, carrying every sleepless night, every double shift, every insult they'd thrown at me. "You treated me like I was disposable, like my work didn't matter, like my life was less valuable than Kyle's endless vacations. But here's the truth. Grandma saw me. She trusted me. And now you'll see just how big of a mistake you made." For the first time in years, they weren't laughing, mocking, or sneering. They were silent, because the one thing they valued most, money, had slipped straight through their fingers into mine. And standing there, I realized something I never thought I'd feel around them. Power. The courthouse air still clung to my skin as I walked outside with the envelope pressed tight against my chest. The sun had burned through the morning haze, but my parents and siblings stood in the shadow of the building, their faces twisted with disbelief. Amanda was the first to break the silence. She stormed toward me, heels clicking against the pavement like gunshots. "You set this up, didn't you?" she hissed. "You and Grandma, plotting behind our backs. You knew about this all along." I met her glare without flinching. Of course I knew. That's why I didn't fall apart when I saw movers clearing my house last night. You thought I'd just roll over, but Grandma didn't raise me to be stupid. She raised me to survive you. Amanda's jaw tightened, but before she could spit out another insult, Mom's voice cracked through the tension. "How dare you embarrass us like that, Riley?" Her nails dug into the leather of her purse. "You stood there in front of a clerk and humiliated this family." I actually laughed, a sharp, bitter laugh that cut through her theatrics. "No, Mom. You humiliated yourselves when you forged ahead with a sale you didn't have the right to make. I didn't ruin your reputation. You did that the second you signed papers without understanding what you were signing." Dad finally stepped forward, face red, voice sharp. You think you're clever, waving paperwork around like some kind of lawyer? Let me remind you, Riley, you wouldn't even have had that house if it weren't for us. We co-signed. We carried the risk. I squared my shoulders, meeting his glare head on. And Grandma made sure you couldn't touch it when it mattered most. She knew what you'd try to do. She knew you'd always put Kyle first. That's why she locked you out legally and gave me the ground beneath the house. She didn't trust you, and now you've proved her right. Kyle scoffed, tugging his sunglasses off and shoving them into his pocket. So what, Riley? You've got the money now? Congratulations. You're still a waitress pulling double shifts. Do you really think owning some dirt makes you better than me? I turned toward him, and this time, my voice wasn't just steady. It carried a weight even I hadn't felt before. No, Kyle. What makes me better is that I work for what I have. I don't need mom and dad to rob other people to pay for my vacations. I don't need handouts. I've been surviving without your approval my whole life, and now I'll thrive without it. For a moment, his smug expression faltered. A few people on the courthouse steps had stopped to watch, their curious glances flicking between us. It wasn't a private argument anymore. It was a public unraveling. My family, so obsessed with appearances, was being stripped bare right in front of strangers. Amanda tugged on Mom's sleeve, whispering urgently. Mom nodded, then tried to soften her tone like she always did when she wanted to manipulate me. Listen, Riley, you've made your point. But think about what you're doing. This money, it was supposed to give Kyle opportunities. Don't you want your brother to have a future? Isn't family more important than money? My throat tightened, but not from doubt, from fury. Family? I repeated, my voice rising. Family is what you use as a shield every time you betray me. Family didn't think twice about selling the roof over my head. Family laughed when I worked double shifts while Kyle slept in. Family told me I wasn't worth as much as a plane ticket to Europe. Don't stand there and lecture me about family when you've never treated me like part of one. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could see people whispering at the edge of the steps, their eyes wide. My parents hated gossip more than anything, and now they were the center of it. Amanda broke first, her voice sharp but shaky. You'll regret this. You think you've won, but when the money runs out, you'll come crawling back. You always do. I stepped closer, so close she had to tilt her chin up to meet my eyes. No, Amanda, the crawling stops today. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I turned and started walking down the courthouse steps, the envelope clutched tightly in my hand. Behind me, their voices rose, angry, panicked, desperate. But I didn't stop. Every step felt like a chain snapping off my back, years of humiliation and betrayal falling away. By the time I reached the sidewalk, my phone buzzed. A message from the escrow officer, funds released. Proceeds redirected to Heart Corner Land, LLC. I stopped in my tracks, staring at the words, my hands trembling. It was real. The money they thought was Kyle's was mine. All of it. For the first time in years, I smiled. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of sheer relief. They had taken everything they thought I had. But Grandma had given me something they could never steal. And now, I was finally free. The message from escrow lit up my screen like a beacon. Funds released. Proceeds redirected to Heart Corner Land, LLC. My hands tightened around the phone until I thought it might crack, but I couldn't let go. This was real. It wasn't a bluff, wasn't just some paperwork I waved in my family's face. It was mine. The very money they stole to fund Kyle's Playboy vacation was now sitting safely under my name. Behind me, I heard the shuffle of heels and the hurried breath of Amanda catching up. She grabbed my arm, nails digging into my sleeve. You can't just take it all, she hissed, her face blotchy with panic. That's not how family works. I yanked my arm free. Don't you dare use the word family with me again. Mom and Dad were right behind her, their polished appearances unraveling by the second. Dad's face was red, his jaw tight, while Mom's lipstick smudged as she muttered desperate appeals. Riley, think about this. Be reasonable. We can sit down, discuss a fair split. I spun on my heel, my voice slicing through her words. Fair split? Where was the fair split when you signed my house away without even calling me? Where was the fair split when Amanda mocked me last? Night for working 2 jobs while Kyle partied? Number, you wanted all of it. Now you get nothing. Kyle, finally realizing the weight of it all, shoved his sunglasses back on, but his voice cracked when he spoke. You don't need that money, Riley. You're just gonna waste it. You don't even know how to handle it. I stared at him for a long moment, then said softly, Funny. That's exactly what Grandma used to say about you. His mouth fell open, but no words came. The tension around us had drawn a small crowd. Lawyers exiting the courthouse, strangers with coffee cups. They all lingered, curious. My family, who always valued appearances above all else, was now being exposed in broad daylight. Their humiliation wasn't just in losing the money, it was in losing the performance they'd worked so hard to maintain. I stepped forward, lowering my voice so only they could hear. Do you know what this really is? Justice. For every time you called me less. For every night I came home from work and found you throwing parties with the lights I paid for. For every sigh, every sneer, every reminder that Kyle was the golden child and I was the burden. Justice doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it comes on embossed paper with a seal. And sometimes, I lifted the envelope slightly, it comes with a bank transfer. Amanda's eyes filled with something I'd never seen in her before. Not just anger, but fear. Mom pressed her lips together and Dad, for the first time, looked like he might break. I turned away before they could see the tears burning the edges of my own vision. They would never understand that I hadn't wanted revenge. What I wanted was respect. What I wanted was to matter. And thanks to Grandma, I finally had something they couldn't take away. As I walked down the block, my phone buzzed again. A message from the bank app confirmed the transfer. 6 figures, clean, secured. My legs almost gave out beneath me, but I kept walking, step by step until the courthouse was behind me. I stopped at the diner on the corner, the same one where I'd spent countless nights pouring coffee for strangers who barely looked at me. For once, I didn't walk in as the tired waitress. I walked in as someone who had taken back her life. Sliding into a booth, I set the envelope beside me and finally let myself exhale. For years, I thought survival meant enduring whatever scraps my family threw at me. But now I knew survival was more than that. It was standing up. It was refusing to be their punching bag. It was holding the ground beneath my feet and saying, no more. And as I sipped a cup of coffee that I didn't have to serve, I smiled. Because for the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was winning.
You're just a burden. That's the last thing my father shouted before throwing my suitcase down the porch steps. The wheels cracked when it hit the bottom. My mother didn't even look me in the eye, just stood behind him with her arms folded like I'd brought shame into their perfect little world. And maybe I had, because 5 minutes earlier, I told them I'd lost my job, and that I was pregnant. I didn't beg. I didn't scream. I didn't even flinch when the door slammed behind me. I just picked up my broken suitcase with shaking hands, wrapped my coat around my stomach, and walked into the cold. Let me back up, but just a little, not too far. I was 26, living back home. Not ideal, I know. But I was working full-time as a junior design assistant at a firm downtown, saving up for my own place, trying to make something of myself. I didn't party, didn't ask for handouts. I paid rent, cooked dinner 3 nights a week, even mowed the lawn when Dad's back started giving out. But none of it ever seemed to matter to them. I was still the one who never figured it out. My brother? Gold-plated. My parents praised the ground he walked on. Me? I was tolerated. Barely. When I found out I was pregnant, I already knew how that conversation would go. What I didn't expect was to lose my job the same week. Corporate layoffs. Department restructuring. Whatever excuse they gave, it didn't matter. I was out. No income. No backup plan. And still, I thought maybe, just maybe, my parents would soften. That hearing I was going to have a baby would bring something human out of them. But no. It brought rage. Whose is it? My father barked. What kind of idiot gets knocked up when she can't even hold a job? My mother added. And then came the shouting. The insults. The part where they said they were done cleaning up after me, when they never cleaned up a damn thing in the first place. Then the suitcase. Then the door. And then silence. I walked for blocks that night. No money. No plan. Just one tiny, fluttering thought. You're not alone anymore. I found a 24-hour laundromat and slept there for a few hours. The hum of the dryers was the only sound that didn't make me feel like I was disappearing. I didn't cry. Not until I woke up at sunrise and felt my baby kick for the first time. Right then, I swore to myself. They threw me out, but I'm going to give this child everything they never gave me. I just didn't know what it would take to keep that promise. But I was ready to find out. I wish I could say someone came along and rescued me. That there was some kind stranger, a miracle check, a lucky break. But that's not how it happened. I built everything from nothing. The morning after they kicked me out, I walked until my legs gave out. I ended up in a women's shelter, one of those places with paper-thin blankets, crying babies, and bunk beds that smelled like bleach. I didn't tell anyone I was pregnant at first. I was scared they'd turn me away. But when I finally did, something changed. One of the volunteers, an older woman named Denise, looked me in the eye and said, "If you fight for this child, this world will not break you. But you have to fight hard." I started working at a diner the next week. The pay was awful. The hours were brutal. But I smiled at every customer, wiped every counter, and stashed every dollar like it was gold. By the time I was 7 months pregnant, I had 2 jobs. One at the diner, another at a motel front desk on weekends. I didn't sleep much. I barely ate. But my baby was healthy. I made sure of that. I remember sitting on a bus one night, my feet swollen, my back on fire, watching people laugh on their phones, and I thought, they have no idea what it takes just to survive like this. Still, I didn't stop. Because every kick from my son reminded me that I wasn't doing it just for me anymore. I was building a world where no one would ever make him feel like he was a burden. Noah was born in a clinic that let me pay on a sliding scale. I had nothing but a thrift store diaper bag and a secondhand car seat. But when I held him for the first time, none of that mattered. He looked at me, tiny, warm, wrinkled, and suddenly I wasn't tired anymore. I wasn't scared. I wasn't broken. I was a mother. I named him Noah because that's what he was to me, a new beginning after a flood that nearly drowned me. We moved from the shelter into a basement room I rented from an old couple who barely spoke English. It was damp, but it had a door, a lock, a window that let in just enough light. That was all we needed. Years passed, and slowly we climbed. I started freelancing at night after Noah went to sleep. Graphic design jobs, layout gigs, anything I could do on a secondhand laptop. I took free online courses, watched tutorials, taught myself everything I could. One day, a small local agency gave me a chance. Just one project. I poured my entire soul into it. They loved it. From there, I climbed faster. 1 client turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. I stopped working for others and started my own firm. Took every penny I had, registered my business, and hired one assistant. Her name was Margot. She believed in me before I even had a business card. And today, I run one of the fastest growing design studios in the entire state. We got clients across the country. My office has floor-to-ceiling windows. My son? He goes to one of the best private schools in the city. And me? I'm no longer that scared, pregnant girl carrying a cracked suitcase on a freezing night. I'm the woman who survived. I'm the woman who rebuilt. And just when I thought the past was finally behind me, it knocked on my door. Literally. Because last Friday I opened it, and standing on my front porch were the 2 people I thought I'd never see again. My parents. And the look on their faces? They weren't angry anymore. They were desperate. When I opened the door and saw them standing there, I didn't say a word. My father's hair had gone completely gray. His posture wasn't proud anymore. He looked like someone had taken a hammer to his spine. My mother's face was pale and tired, her makeup smeared like she'd been crying for hours. They looked nothing like the people who'd thrown me out a decade ago. For a second, I wondered if they even recognized me. I didn't step outside.
I didn't invite them in.
I just stood there, holding the doorframe, and waited. My mother was the first to speak. "Hi," she said softly. "You look good."
I didn't reply.
Then my father cleared his throat. We didn't know where else to go.
I stared at them.
"After 10 years, now you come to my house." He nodded, slow. "We're not proud of it." I crossed my arms. "Are you proud of anything you did back then?" My mother's lip trembled. Avery, we're sorry. We've made mistakes. But your brother, he moved away. The business failed. The house, that's gone. We're living in a motel off the freeway. I should have felt something. I should have felt something. But I didn't. Because where was this sorrow when I was sleeping in a shelter, pregnant and alone? Where was this regret when I was eating off-dollar menus just to feed Noah? I have a son, I said flatly. He's 10. He's smart, kind, and everything I needed when you made me feel like I was nothing. My mother wiped her face. We want to meet him. We want to make things right. No, I said. Please, my father croaked. We're not asking for money, just time. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. You had time. You had years. You had every chance. You threw me away like garbage. And now you want to act like family? My voice didn't rise, but it got sharper. Family isn't blood. It's who stands with you when you're falling apart. And the only person who did that for me was me. They both looked like they'd been slapped. I wanted to slam the door right then, but something inside me needed them to understand one thing clearly. So I stepped forward, just enough for them to see the life behind me, the neat house, the family photos, the signs of a life built from ashes. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't trust you. And you don't get to meet Noah just because you suddenly feel bad. They didn't argue. They just stood there, broken, as I quietly said the words they once said to me. I think it's time for you to leave. Then I shut the door and locked it and walked away without looking back. I thought it was over. After that night, after I shut the door on them, I honestly believed they'd leave. That maybe, finally, they got the message. But 2 days later, I got a call from Noah's school. It was his homeroom teacher, Mrs. Klein, sweet woman, patient, the kind of teacher who leaves handwritten notes on report cards. Hi, Ms. Grant, she said gently. I wanted to check in with you about something. I wasn't sure if these individuals were authorized. My stomach dropped. What happened? I asked. Well, an older couple showed up in the front office this morning. They said they were Noah's grandparents. They asked if they could see him, just for a moment. We told them it wasn't allowed without your permission. I sat there frozen, gripping the steering wheel in the parking lot of my office. They didn't speak to him, right? I asked, my voice shaking now. No. The receptionist kept them at the desk. But we thought you should know. I thanked her and hung up. And then I sat there for 10 whole minutes, trying not to cry, trying not to scream, trying to decide if I was more furious or terrified. They didn't just cross a line. They bulldozed over it, going to my child's school, without telling me. After a decade of silence and cruelty, that wasn't regret. That was manipulation. That night, I didn't tell Noah. I couldn't. Not yet. He was lying on the floor, building some weird spaceship thing out of Legos, tongue poking out of the side of his mouth. Happy. Safe. I wasn't going to bring fear into his world. Not when I'd worked this hard to build it for him. But inside me, a storm was brewing. I called a lawyer the next morning, told her everything. She listened, then said, "You have every right to protect your son. We can file a restraining order. Emergency if needed." I nodded slowly. Do it. Because this wasn't just about old trauma anymore. This was about boundaries. This was about Noah. They could cry. They could beg. They could tell everyone I was cruel, unforgiving, cold. I didn't care. Because the second they went near my son without my permission, they stopped being people from my past and became a threat to my present. I didn't hear from them for a few more days, until the letter arrived. Handwritten. Shaky. Pages folded like they'd been carried in someone's pocket for too long. It was from my father. I know we can't fix what we broke, but you're the only good thing we ever did, Avery. And we see that now. We didn't deserve your forgiveness. We still don't. But we just wanted to say we're proud of you. We were wrong. About everything. We won't bother you anymore. We promise. I read it twice. And then I folded it, placed it in a drawer. Not because I forgave them. Not yet. But because for the first time it didn't feel like a guilt trip. It felt like surrender. And maybe that's what I needed to hear. Not begging. Not excuses. Just an honest admission that they'd lost me, and it was their own fault. Weeks passed. No more calls. No more surprise visits. Nothing. It was like they vanished again, but this time for good. And I thought, maybe that's how it ends. No dramatic showdown, no final apology. Just silence. But life has a strange way of folding in on itself when you least expect it. Because one morning, I got a message from the director of the local outreach center, a place I'd quietly been donating to every month for years. They were hosting a winter clothing drive. She wanted to know if I could swing by for an hour to help organize drop-offs. I said yes. I took Noah with me. It was a Saturday. He was bundled in a red hoodie, cracking jokes in the back seat the whole way there. I remember thinking, this is the life I built. Full of warmth, safety, purpose. We walked inside, smiling, carrying bags of jackets and scarves. And then, I saw them. My parents. They were sitting on a bench in the waiting area, holding hands, staring at the floor like they were trying to disappear into it. They didn't see me at first. They didn't see him. But I froze. So did Noah. He looked up at me and tilted his head. Mom, I swallowed hard. Those are my parents, I whispered. His eyes widened. Really? I nodded. Do you want to say anything? He thought about it, then shook his head.
No.
I'm okay. I smiled. That was the moment I realized. He didn't need anything from them. Not their love. Not their recognition. Not their approval. Because he already had mine. And I had his. We walked right past them. But as we did, my mother looked up. Her eyes locked on Noah. She didn't say a word. Didn't call out. Didn't reach for me. She just stared, and I'll never forget her expression. It wasn't hope. It wasn't anger. It was regret. Deep, unbearable, bone-deep regret. And that was enough for me. We spent the next 2 hours sorting jackets and chatting with volunteers. Noah made everyone laugh. He handed out juice boxes. He even found a coat that perfectly fit one little boy and said, "You look awesome, man." And the whole time, I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness, but peace. When we got home that evening, Noah pulled me into a hug. Thanks for taking me today. It was fun. I looked at him. My son. My heart. My reason. And I whispered, "Thank you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me."
And I meant it.
Not a day goes by that I don't remember where we came from. The nights I cried alone. The days I felt like giving up. The way the people who were supposed to love me made me feel worthless. But I also remember how I rose. How I became everything they said I couldn't be. And now, I don't need revenge. I don't need apologies. Because I already won. I built a life out of broken pieces. And the door they slammed on me 10 years ago, I walked through it anyway. And I never looked back.